Yeah, good morning, everyone. In this particular lecture, we'll be studying about a topic called gate level design. Gate level design. And in this gate level design, as per today's lecture, we'll be having a spotlight on few topics like logic gates, parasitics and performances, driving large capacitive loads, static CMOS logic. Later in the next lectures, we'll be studying about wiring capacitance, alternate gates. Like in alternate gates, we'll be studying about what is meant by dynamic logic, what is meant by domino logic, what is meant by ratioed circuits, what is meant by pass transistors, switch level designing, all those different kinds of circuit designings are there. Those logics we'll be studying in the alternate gate circuits. And after that one, timing delays, fan in, fan out, and choice of the layers. So this is the content for this particular topic on uh, alternate gates to the CMOS logic. So let us see one after another all those spotlighted topics which you can see as the bolded topics. So first one, NMOS gate. If you see the NMOS gate, in this particular NMOS logic, you'll be having only the design of this circuit, any kind of Boolean equation circuit will be designed by using only the N transistors. If you see the first one here, if you see the first one here, it is an A dot B whole bar. It means we are talking about NMOS devices which are in series in order to implement a NAND function. So we are trying to implement a NAND function with the help of the series NMOS. So here both the NMOS have been connected, where the source of the second NMOS is connected to this ground, and the drain of the first NMOS is connected to the output, V out. So now for these two gates of this NMOS, A and B, we'll be supplying the logics, that is 0 and 1. As per this truth table, if you supply 0 and 0, what happens here? We know that whenever the gate voltage is logic 0, the NMOS will be turned off. It means there will be no channel between the source and drain. That's why we cannot expect any kind of signal movement from the drain to source of an N transistor. So therefore, there is no channel here whenever the inputs are 0 and 0. Because of that reason, the output will be 0. A dot B. For A dot B, the output is going to be 0. Since it is an A dot B bar, the negation of 0 will be 1. So that's how you have got your output is equal to 1. And next one, for the next logic 0 and 1, if you supply 0 and 1, that's A equal to 0 and B equal to 1, this transistor is turned off and this is turned on. So even though this is turned this B, second one is turned on, and this is turned off, since this one is a transistor which will connect this entire logic of a NAND gate to the output. Since it is turned off, you cannot expect the output to reach, or the signal to reach to the output. So therefore, you'll be having an output as 0 for the A dot B. Since it's a negation of A dot B bar, you'll be getting an output of 1. Even though it is on, whatever the previous stage output is, that will be dragged to the ground. So ultimately, there will be no output in this one, in this channel. Even though this channel is on, there will be only the 0 voltage which will prevail in this particular channel. And that's how for the next stage 1 0. It is a reverse of this previous state. A transistor 1 will be on and transistor 2 is off. So even though this one is on, in the previous state it is off. The output is here 1. That output will travel through the channel of this first transistor, and it comes over here. And since this is off, ultimately the slow degrading of the charge will be taking place. So the charge will be moving from high potential area to low potential area. Since in the previous state it is 1 here, the output is 1 here, that will be slowly, it will be discharged through this particular channel. And ultimately you will get an answer equal to 0 for the A dot B. If A dot B is 0, the negation of A dot B will be 1. So that's why you got your answer is equal to 1 here. And the next last stage, that is 1 and 1. If inputs or logics are 1 and 1, then both the transistors are going to be turned on. Since it is turned on, both the channels have been formed between the two transistors. And that's why, because of that reason, whatever the previous output is here, the previous output was 1. So that previous output will travel from this point, from the output to ground. Why does it travel? Because there is a channel difference has been, that's a channel, potential difference has taken place. Because of this potential difference, the potential will move from high potential area to the low potential area, which is a ground, which is zero potential area. So that's why the logic 1 will be always taken as a VDD value, which is equivalent to VDD, which is a high potential supply to the circuit. So that high potential will be moved to the zero potential, and ultimately you will not be having any this one. So because of this reason, the previous output is here 1, and you'll get an output equal to 0. So this is the operation how this NAND gate will be working. And next one, if you see this one, NMOS devices. For the NMOS devices, if you see devices in parallel, here both the devices are in parallel for NOR operation. If these two transistors are connected in parallel, it means that these two transistors will act as a NOR gate, and this one, since they are connected in series, it will be acting as a NAND gate. So the same operation, if you supply the logics over here for A and B, is for 0 and 0, what happens? Both will be turned off. Because of turned off nature, here there is no connection between the source and drain. Your output is going to be 0, and ultimately it's a bar. For a bar, you'll get an output equal to 1. And that same thing happens. It's the reverse of this operations. 1, 2, 3 will be acting over here as 2, 3, and 4. For 0, 1. For 0, 1, what happens? This NMOS will be turned off, and N1 will be, N2 will be turned on. Whenever it is turned on, you can see here, the previous state is 1. That will move to the ground. Okay. So you'll not have any kind of output at the A plus B whole bar. You'll be having only 0 that is equal to 0. The previous was equal, here it is 1. That 1 will travel through the channel and it goes to the ground because of the potential difference, and A plus B whole bar, now it is going to become equal to 0. And now it's a similar case. This is going to be turned on for 1, 0 condition. If A equal to gate A equal to 1 and gate B equal to 0, this N2 will be turned off and N1 is going to be turned on. So now this, what are the previous state, that will travel through this one, CNO. Here, so completely, you will be having a 0 state throughout this channel. So that's because of that reason you got an answer equal to be 0. And similarly, it is for 1 and 1, which you have seen this one while implementing the different kinds of Boolean equations. So this is regarding how to construct a small NAND gate or a NOR gate with the help of NMOS devices, and how to evaluate or how to analyze the circuits. And let us see now the PMOS gates. For the PMOS gate, for A dot B, we know that the PMOS should be connected in the parallel. For parallel, a similar kind of operation. Now here, both the PMOS will be turning on only when the inputs are equal to 0. If both the inputs are equal to 0, then you know that this completely for AND gate, the one will logic 1 will travel to this output. Since it's a NAND gate, so ultimately you're going to get here the output is equal to 1. So this particular complete one will travel to here. If you want for AND gate, you are supposed to supply here one inverter so that this becomes as an A dot B. For NAND gate, it is A dot B bar. So this complete logic 1, which is equivalent to VDD here, that logic 1 will travel to the output through this anyone. It can either travel through transistor 1 or it can either travel through transistor 2. But ultimate goal of this potential, which is at a VDD, is to travel to the output. So that logic 1 will travel to this output. So that's why A dot B whole bar is equal to 1. So next case for the next one, 1, 0. For 1, 0 here, from now here from the next stages, either of the transistors is going to be turned off or both the transistors will be turned off. For 0, 1 state, this particular A transistor or the transistor 1 is going to be on and B transistor is going to be off. So now there is complete picture. There's only one way, one path for the VDD to travel through the output. So it travels through this transistor through the channel. Wow, how does it travels? Because since we have supplied here logic 0, because of that gate voltage, now the gate voltage will become greater than this threshold voltage. Because of the threshold voltage, since it is greater than threshold voltage, a channel has been formed here. Since the channel has been formed, through that channel, this VDD, that is logic 0, will travel to this output. So that's how you're going to get A dot B whole bar equal to 1. For next case, it's the reverse of this operation. A is going to be off and B is going to be turned on. So here the channel is formed. when we supply a gate voltage which is greater than threshold voltage, channel will be formed, and through this channel the potential will travel. That is the difference is created between the output and this one VDD. Potential travels through this transistor 2 to the output, and you get an output is equal to 1. So that's what is 1. And now whenever both the inputs are 1 and 1, then both the transistors are going to be turned off. We know that whenever we supply logic 1 to the PMOS transistor, the PMOS is going to be turned off. If it is turned off, there is no channel between this VDD and output, so output is going to be 0. So this is how you are supposed to analyze. The same thing is applicable for the NOR gate also. If you connect both the NOR gate in series, it is called, sorry, if you connect both the PMOS in series, we call it as a NOR gate. If you connect both the PMOS in parallel, we call it as a NAND gate. So next one is regarding the parasitics and performances. So now here, whenever we try to draw the layout for any of the design, basically there are three main parasitics or unwanted capacitances or resistance will be formed. The three main parasitics which are majorly, which we are supposed to look into this particular layout designing is that first one, the parasitics which have been formed here at this point at the VDD rail, and next one is at the input part, and third one is at the output part. So these are the main three regions where the parasitics have been formed. Parasitics are nothing else but which we call it as an unwanted capacitances or unwanted resistances, which we don't want actually in our circuit to be formed, but because of the circuit connections, because of the small mistakes of the designers, these parasitics might evolve, and we are supposed to look into that design in order to minimize the parasitics or in order to remove the parasitics. So first one, let us consider this particular layout here. Let us see what are the impacts where this parasitics are formed in this layout. Here, this the first one is at a point of VDD rail, and second one is at the point of input, which is called as a B point, and the third one is at a point of output. So these are the three main regions where we are supposed to concentrate while designing the transistors or CMOS circuits layouts. Let us see now one after the another the parasitics. First, at point A, this is a power supply rail. First one is called this part, and this part is called as a power supply rails. This is called as a VDD rail, and this one, bottom one, is called as a ground rail. So now first one, the major part, since we supply the power over here, right from here itself, the power has been supplied to the entire circuit. So majorly we are supposed to look into this part where in order to avoid any kind of parasitics in order to be formed. Parasitics is nothing else, but it's like if you talk about capacitances, you should take carefulness while drawing the layers so that there will be no lengthy parallel masks have been done, or no long parallel metal layers and the other different layers comes into contact. If this parallel connections comes into contact, we call it as a capacitance. If the length of a particular layer is being increased, then definitely the resistance is going to be increased, which we have studied in the basics of your resistance. R resistance R is equal to rho L by A. It tells that directly the resistance is directly proportional to length, and it is inversely proportional to the area. It means that if the width of this particular layer is increasing, the resistance is going to be decreased. Why? Because area, whenever you talk about the aspect ratio, area is equal to W by L. We call it as an W by L in the aspect ratio. That is, L is the length of the particular channel, and W is the width of the channel. If the width is increasing, then definitely what happens? It reduces the resistance. Why? Because resistance is inversely proportional to the width, and it is directly proportional to the length. If length is increasing, then the resistance also increases. Why does the resistance increases? The main reason is that resistance is nothing else but we are talking about with respect to the length of a particular mask or the channel. It takes longer amount of time for the charge carriers to move from one point to another point. If the time which is taken by the charge carrier, R is equal to rho L by A, okay, where R is a resistance, and rho is nothing else but is a specific resistivity, or else specific resistance or resistivity. L is the length, and A is the area of the cross section. So now here, if you can see that this resistance is directly proportional to length. So if the length of this one particular mask is increased, what happens? Then definitely we can say that the resistance also increases. But when you come to this particular area, it is regarding the width. If the width has been increased, the resistance is going to be decreased. So that is how the aspect ratio has been formed. Aspect ratio is nothing else, but we are talking about the length and width of the transistor. If the width of the transistor is increased, the resistance will be decreased. Lower resistance. If you want a low resistance, the width should be increased, and we cannot decrease the length of a particular transistor. Why? Because the length of a transistor will denote the technology node. Technology node means if you're trying to design any kind of transistor in 90 nanometer particular technology, the length of that particular transistor has been fixed. It has to be that much. Below that particular default value, we cannot reduce the length of a particular transistor. You cannot even reduce it. Even if you try to give a smaller value in the software, it will not even take. Also, it will set it for the default value as per the different technologies. So as per the technology node, the length will be fixed for a default value for the minimum value. Below the minimum value, we cannot reduce the length. But whereas the width can be increased so that in order to decrease this particular resistance. So now you can see this particular in this particular area of power supply, the capacitance which is formed over here will have a lesser impact upon the entire circuit. Therefore, no effect on the delay part. How to understand this delay? See here, if you are having a larger capacitance, I'm talking about, if you're talking about larger capacitance means, let us try to imagine that in order to make you understand, I can tell that capacitor is nothing else but it is a parallel connection of two metal plates. If you're having two metal plates, depending upon what to say, the capacitance of this particular capacitor. If the capacitance is large, it takes larger amount of time in order to charge a particular capacitor. You might have, even nowadays we are just moving into a new era of batteries for a mobile phones or for any of the newer technology devices. You might have heard about recently a mobile phone has been launched with a 7,000 mAh. That's it's like first in kind of a mobile phone, which all the specifications. But if you see that charging capacity, the charging capacity of that particular 7,000 mAh is nearly 2 hours. It takes nearly 2 hours in order to charge that 7,000 mAh. But if you see about 4,000 mAh or 3,000 mAh, hardly the time is lesser than 1 hour. Means it takes the time. Time is very important. In order to completely fill that capacitance, it takes longer time. That time itself tells the delay. Why we are talking it as a delay? Because if the capacitor is not completely charged, we cannot say that our output is obtained at the output part. So the capacitance has to be very small so that it can easily deliver the output from one point to another point. So that's why the capacitance has to be very small. Why we are telling this point is not, it will not affect much on the delay, because it has no way connected to the input and output of the signal. It only supplies the power to the circuit. So this capacitance which is formed here, it will not have much impact on the delay of the signal movement. Coming to the resistance. Here the resistance, if resistance is increased, the resistance means if you are talking about the length of this mask is increased, then definitely it increases the delay, because it slows down your entire system. If resistance is increased means it slows down your entire system. So the signal moves very slowly. That's the main reason why we are supposed to take care about this resistance at the power supply rail. How to do that one? By minimize this resistance by reducing the diffusion length. The diffusions you might have seen, we will be diffusing the impurities in the particular area wherever you want that one. If the length of that one, even I have told in while talking about the fabrication part, I have told even the length to what amount that particular diffusion is being done, like some 10 millimeters, 10 micrometer. I have told those are the minimum lengths. If you increase that particular diffusion length, then definitely the resistance is going to be increased. So you're supposed to look into that parameter also. The diffusion lengths also should be minimum as per the each and every technology. Then minimize using parallel wires. See here, parallel wires means we can, instead of using one particular contact here, you can use one after the another 3 or 4 contacts. that also increases this particular resistance. In this particular layout, we have used only one contact here, but in some of the layouts, if you see some designs, they'll be using more number of contacts in order to get some other performances. Why? Because VLSI is like having a trade-off. It will be having a trade-off between different parameters. If you want one particular performance of one particular parameter, then the other you are supposed to compromise for the other parameter. Like CNO, if you want, nowadays we are having many different mobile phones. If you see the mobile phones, why? Because this is an era of mobile phones. If you see that one, many different companies are releasing their own different products, but when you try to review the different mobile phones, you can see the difference between the two mobile phones. One will be good in one particular aspect, other one is going to be good in other aspect. Means that is called as a trade-off. In order to get one particular parameter, we are supposed to compromise the other one. That is called as a trade-off. So that happens in every VLSI design. So the second one, the second kind of parameters which happens here, parasitics, which takes places at the input part. At the gate input, the capacitances increases. This capacitance which is formed here will increase the delay. You're supposed to look into this capacitance. It has to be very less amount of capacitance should be formed, or else it will be much better if you take care of that capacitance and not to make that capacitance to be formed. Means you should be carefully, you should design the layout, each and every layer, and the distance between the two or three layers. Wherever you're trying to design this input, you should take care as a VLSI design engineer, so that the capacitance will be very minimum, or no capacitance has been formed. If a capacitance is formed here itself, it takes longer amount of time, so that the delay will be increased in order to send the signal from input to the output part. So that's why it increases the delay on the previous stage, and often the transistor gates will dominate. So therefore, it also dominates the transistor, number of transistors also increases. Why? Because you are supposed to drive that huge amount of load. In order to drive the huge amount of load, you need again some drivers to drive that one. Then again, the resistance increases, delay on the previous stage. If you are having a huge amount of resistance here, if you are using a long path or long mask, then that increases the delay. If let us assume this is a buffer circuit where it has another inverter over here, then if you are having a large capacitance and resistance here, the signal which comes from here, from the previous inverter to the next inverter, it takes longer amount of time in order to feed that output of the previous inverter as an input to this one, as input to the second inverter. So that is what is mentioned here as a previous stage. Previous stage means all the circuits have been connected from one module to another module. So this is very important, where we are supposed to look into this concepts of capacitance and resistance at input part. The next one, the concept of capacitance and input at the output terminal. The resistance and capacitance will increase the delay, and this is a major and most important point, where you should have the minimum resistance and minimum capacitance. Since the CMOS is having lower capability to drive the large capacitive loads, the technology of CMOS has switched to the BiCMOS, where you will be using a BJT in order to drive the large capacitive loads wherever you require large capacitances in the design. In that cases, we'll be using a BiCMOS over here. Or else, if you're not using a BiCMOS technology, or if you're not using a BJT over here in order to drive the large capacitances, then you should make sure that the capacitance which is formed over here at the output and the resistance which is formed over here will be very minimum. Those has to be very minimum. Otherwise, it will increases the delay. The resistance and capacitance near to the output causes an additional delay. The capacitance and resistance at the output should be very minimum, or else you should make sure there will be no capacitance or no resistance caused, and that will act as an parasitics for the huge design, or for your and even it will degrade the performance of the design. And this is regarding the small signal analysis of from input to the output part, how a signal moves. This is a small signal analysis of this particular design. Now coming to the basics of capacitances. Why do we need the capacitance? As I just explained in one of the slide, that what is meant by capacitance. Capacitance is nothing else but it's a passive element which will be storing the charge and which will be storing the energy in the form of like electrical energy. To control the variation time scales in a circuit, we'll be using this capacitances. If you want the faster circuits, you'll be using the smaller capacitance. Or if you want to control the time lagging, if you want a time lagging for the signal to be moved, if you want one particular signal has to reach another point at one particular time, like t is equal to 10 seconds, it has to move. Then if you use a capacitor between the two modules, that will delay the signal, so that within that time the signal which has to reach to the second module will be reached. So that's how it will be used for controlling the timing scale in order to vary that one, or in order to slow. It will be used as an intermediate between the 2 points. So this is a diagram where you're having a points, 2 charges here. These are the 2 conductors which are been isolated electrically. 2 charges, charge plus and negative charges, where electrically these have been isolated from each other and their surrounding to form this capacitance. So now here, in the previous slide, I have drawn 2 metal parallel plates. So these 2 parallel, assume that there is a parallel plate which is parallel, which is like vertical here. Assume this is a vertical plate, and this is another vertical plate. So now here in this, on this particular plate A, a positive charge has been settled. On this particular plate B, a negative charge has been settled. That is the meaning of this. This will act as a capacitor. When the capacitor is charged, the charge on the conductors or the plates, as they are called, have a same magnitude Q. Both will be having the same magnitude Q, but opposite in sign. But they will be in opposite in sign. So in order to make the capacitor, or in order to make that particular charge to be stored, you are supposed to use in between a dielectric, so that the charge will not be nullified between the 2 positive and negative plates. So that's why we use a dielectric material between these 2 plates, which acts as an insulator between the positive plate and negative plate. So coming to the capacitance, how this happens to the capacitances. So see now this diagram which is shown here, there are 2 plates which are in parallel. These are the 2 plates which are in parallel. Between these 2 parallel plates, even your layers also looks like this only. There are 2 plates which are in parallel. The first one is a bottom one, like it has been taken as a negative plate, and the top one is taken as a positive plate. And this is the distance between the 2 plates, like D is a distance, and V you can see the here one. So now it is a voltage difference, that is the potential difference. So now here, this is a previous, it's an explanation to the previous diagram how an electric field lines have been formed, and movement of the field lines between the 2 plates, positive plate and the negative plate, where A is the area of cross section of this particular plates. So now here we are having 2 parallel plates made up of 2 plates of area A separated by a distance of D. Now the charge on the facing plate surface has the same magnitude Q. Both will be having the same magnitude Q and Q. It means like it will be having like 4 coulomb plus 4 coulombs and minus 4 coulombs. You'll be having the same kind of this one. So now it will be like if you talk about the charge, 4 coulomb and 4 coulomb will be there, but it will be opposite in sign. So that's regarding the same magnitude but opposite in sign. As a field line shows, the electrical field due to the charge plate is uniform. It is uniform at the central region between the plates, and the field is not uniform at the edges. The field will not be uniform at the edges here, as indicated by the fringes of the field lines here. You can see this one. Here you will not be having a uniform electrical field, but whereas in the center part you will be having the same uniform electric field, which I have even studied this one in the basics of BEE, like basic electrical engineering subject, and also in the physics. Now here let us see some what is the formula for the capacitance. We know that the formula for the capacitance is Q equal to CV, where C is a capacitance, Q is a charge, and V is a potential difference. So now if this potential difference, if I write it as C equal to Q over V, I get the capacitance of that one. C is equal to Q over V is a capacitance, and the unit for this capacitance is 1 farad. 1 farad equal to 1 coulomb over 1 volt. So you get 1 farad equal to this, a unit of capacitance, 1 farad equal to 1 coulomb per volt, that is equal to 1 C by V. So this is a small formula regarding the capacitance, how to calculate the capacitance while doing some analog calculations with respect to the circuits. Now charging of a capacitor. How to charge this capacitors? We know that in order to charge the capacitor, we need the switch to be closed. If the switch is closed, then only the signal will be moved from one point to another point. So now here in the first case, the circuit is incomplete because here the switch is open. And because the switch is open, it will not electrically connect the wire attached to the capacitor. So whenever the switch is closed, if you close this particular switch, then there will be an electrical connection between this capacitor and the battery and also this wire. Then only the charging will be takes place in this capacitor in between the two plates of this capacitor. If the switch is closed, the electrical connection connecting those wires and the circuit is complete, charge can flow through the switch and the wire. Through this particular switch and wires, the charge will flow in order to store in this capacitor. As the plates become oppositely charged, regarding the oppositely charged, I have given a lecture in the previous classes how the opposite charges takes place. That is due to the process called an induction method. Due to that induction process, one plate will be having a positive charge, and other plate is having a negative charge. If you want, you can visit that particular lecture. You can look into that lecture in my YouTube channel, capacitance. So now here, until it equals the potential difference V between the terminals of the capacitor, terminals of the battery. So now here, as the plates become oppositely charged, the potential difference increases until that potential difference is equal between these two battery plates. With the electrical field is equal to 0, there is no further drive of electrons. Whenever the electrical field is equal to 0, then definitely what happens? If field is equal to 0 means there is no motion of the electrons. If electrons moves from one point to another point, only we can say there is some electricity has been developed or electric current has been developed. If electrons are not moving, then we cannot say that. We can say that there is no electric field. The capacitor is then said to be fully charged with a potential of V, and Q is equal to charge equal to Q. It means I want to give a real-time example. Now, if you're trying to charge your mobile phone or if you're trying to charge your power bank, whenever the power bank is fully charged, the current from the particular socket will not enter into your mobile phone or into your charger. It will be completely charged. Since a capacitor is fully charged, it will not allow furthermore charges to enter into that one. So that's why then what happens? If you put that one in the same way, then what happens? The charge will slowly try to discharge from that particular capacitor. And also some people, what they do is that even though if your mobile phone is turned off while charging, and even if your laptop is turned off, and still if you try to put that plug into that socket, then definitely the charge from that capacitor will discharge through that wire to the low potential area. That takes place. So you should always make sure that once if your capacitor or your battery or your laptop or your mobile phone is fully charged, you're supposed to remove the plug and make sure that the discharging of your battery will not take place. So that's what has been mentioned here. If a capacitor is fully charged, there will be no flow of electrons whenever that is the switch is on. If a switch is off, what happens? The reverse process takes place. The charge will slowly discharge from high potential. Now this becomes a high potential and switch is open. So now here, this point will become as a low potential. When you try to switch off, there will be no supply from the socket, so or from the battery or from a power supply region. So that's why that region will become as a low potential area, and the capacitor or your mobile phone battery or your laptop battery will become as a high potential area. So there, due to that difference, the charge will flow from capacitor to the this one. So that's why we should be very careful while taking care of that one. Once if a capacitor is fully charged, you should remove that plug. So this is a formula how to calculate the capacitor. Calculation of the capacitance has been done. This is for a non-uniform motion. This particular equation integration part has been done for a non-uniform motion, where Q equal to E into A, integration of Q into E into A, and therefore Q equal to epsilon naught EA. And this is a difference between the two potentials. VF, there's a final potential and the initial potential. We have studied one formula. V is equal to integration of EDS. That formula is nothing else but E equal to V by D, which is a formula for electrical potential we have studied in the basics. So from that formula, you will be writing this one, Vf minus Vi equal to integration of E into ds. If you apply the limits for this one, ultimately you will come across a formula called V equal to Ed. V equal to Ed and E equal to V by D. So this is a formula for, now you substitute this one in the other formula which you have seen, like C equal to Q over V, and those formulas, if you substitute, ultimately you will get the formula of C equal to epsilon naught A over D. And this is a formula for a capacitance in order to find out with respect to the parallel plates. In order to find out the capacitance with respect to parallel plates, if you're having a parallel plate of area A and the distance between the parallel plate is D, then this is a formula to find out the capacitance. And the previous one is a formula in terms of charge and the potential difference. And E is epsilon naught. We know this value for the epsilon naught, 8.85 into 10 power minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton meter square. And coming to the driving large capacitive loads. What is meant by large capacitor load? Why did I explain the capacitor? Because if you don't know what is meant by capacitor, you cannot understand what is the concept of driving large capacitive loads. Here the load means we are talking about different kinds of capacitances or higher capacitance at the outputs. That capacitance has to be driven from one point of the circuit to another point of the circuit. If a capacitance is very huge, you cannot drive that particular circuit signals. So that's why the capacitance topic is very important in order to understand the large capacitive loads. So off-chip loads, long wires, etc. have large capacitances. Large capacitances have been formed in off chips, which are like different kinds of chips, which is not on one particular integrated circuit, or long wires. Long wire also will be having a large capacitances. Increasing the transistor size increasing the driving ability and also the speed. So if you increase the transistor size, the speed will be increased, but the trade-off is that here it will increases the gate capacitance also. This is a trade-off. If you want the speed, then forget about thinking about the gate capacitances. But if you're looking for the performances, then think about the capacitance and forget about the speed of a particular circuit. So this is what is called as a trade-off. So let us see some solutions here. In short, I have written here the solution, like stages of this transistor should be increased. We should increase the cascading of the transistor should be done here. Different transistors have been connected in series manner in order to increase the this one, in order to overcome this large capacitances. So let us see this concept in detail in the next slides. So now here, the problem of driving the large capacitive loads arises when signals travel from out of the chip. Means if you are making a connection between a chip and for another circuit, like another device, then there a large capacitances, occurrence of large capacitance will be taken place. So there you are supposed to be taken care how to drive the capacitance and how to make a connection at the output so that it can easily drive the signal from integrated circuit to the another device wherever you want the device to be used. Usually it so happens that capacitance outside the chip are higher. Now let us see how to overcome this particular problem. The overcoming of this particular problem can be done by cascading the inverters, which we have seen just now. This way, this is called as a cascading method. So now here, if you connect in the series manner, in the cascading manner, then we can overcome this large capacitive loads. In order to overcome that large capacitive loads, we are supposed to reduce the delay. These loads must be driven by the low resistances. Low resistance. When you talk about low resistance, the width of the transistor has to be large. So now to reduce the delay of these loads must be driven by low resistance devices. If we are using a cascade of inverter as a drivers, the pull up and pull down resistances must be reduced. The resistance of the pull up and pull down, the resistance of the PMOS transistor and the resistance of the NMOS transistor has to be reduced. In order to reduce the resistance, we are supposed to increase the width of that particular transistor. The width of the PMOS and also width of the NMOS should be increased. So low resistance means low W by L ratio. Low W by L ratio is nothing else but we are talking about the fractional part of W by L. Here W by L we are talking like W by L sorry, L by W, you're talking about L by W. Since here, this W is in the denominator, if you increase the W, then definitely you'll be getting a lower resistance. So that is the meaning of lower L is to W. In order to have a lower resistance circuits, we should have low L by W ratios. To reduce this ratio, the W must be increased. This has to be increased. Since L cannot be reduced, why does the L does not reduce? I explained in the previous slides. To L cannot be reduced to lesser than the minimum value as per the technology load, we end up having a device which occupies a larger area. So now here we cannot reduce the L, so that's why you'll be going with reducing or increasing of this particular width. So that's why you'll be having a larger area. Larger area means the input capacitance increases and it slows down the process more. So because we cannot do this one with the transistor, we are going for the cascading of inverters as in drivers at the output. So this is the cascading of inverters as a drivers. So can I have still 5 more minutes? Can anyone talk to me? Okay, fine.
Sorry.
I need some 5 more minutes so that I can complete this slide and we'll wind up the class.
Yeah, sir, sure. Please go ahead.
The solution to this is to have the n number of cascade transistors. Like this, we'll be having a n number of cascade transistors with their sizes increasing. The size of this one should be smaller compared to this one. Means it will be an incremental process of size with respect to the cascading of the inverters. The first one will be smaller. Then the next one will be bigger than the previous one, and the third one will be bigger than the second one. So it goes on for the n number of stages. So you should make a driver circuit depending upon the load size. Whatever is the load size, depending upon the load size, the number of inverters will be increased. So this is how you should make the connection of the driver circuit. Now we see that here the width is increasing. The width of these transistors are increasing by a factor of alpha. By a factor of alpha everywhere, you can see here, it's only W, but when it comes to here, it's an alpha W. But when you come to here, it's an alpha square W. What is this WP? It indicates it's the width of a particular PMOS transistor. It's a pull-up transistor and this is a pull-down transistor. We know that inverter will be having a pull-up and also pull-down device. One PMOS and one NMOS is called as an inverter. So it is a logic circuit of that CMOS inverter diagram. So now here, both alpha and N can be complemented. Can be complemented means what? If one is increasing, other one has to be decreased. So that is the meaning of complemented here. If alpha for each stage is large, then the number of devices, N devices also reduces, but delay per stage increases. So if you, as you go on increasing the number of devices, the delay also increases. So now if you should take care about this alpha and N also here. We should carefully try to design this one. How many number of inverters you need? Only that limited inverter should be used in order to drive that large capacitor loads. Therefore, it becomes essential to optimize this one. So how to optimize? We'll see it in the next slide. Fix N and find the minimum value of alpha. So this is a huge concept, but I've given some clear lines about how to minimize that alpha and how to optimize that one. For NMOS inverters, the transition, input transition, if it is happening from 0 to 1, the delay will be alpha times of T. And if it is from 1 to 0, means I'm talking the transition 1 to 0 and 0 to 1, the delay will be 4 times of alpha T. So this is the delay between the for a 0 to 1 transition and from 1 to 0 transition. The delay for NMOS pair is 5. This is an important objective. The delay for the NMOS pair is 5 FT, and for CMOS pair it is 7T. Delay is there. In order to optimize the value of F here, that is a number of times which you have seen in the previous case. Assume that Y is equal to load capacitance CL by RCG, where this is equal to alpha times of N. Therefore, the choice of values of N and R are interdependent. These both are interdependent. Why? Because they are fraction factors. So we should be take care about alpha and N here. In order to find the values of alpha, to minimize the delay, from the equation of y, which this is the equation of y. This is a mathematical form how to increase and decrease the alpha and n values. Ln of y equal to n ln of alpha. That is nothing else but n is equal to ln y by ln alpha. So in order to find out the value of n, you should come up with this formula. And now here, if a delay per stage is phi alpha t for n MOS, then for even number of stages, the total number of delay will be n by 2 times of the phi alpha t, that is 2.5 alpha t. And this is also one important objective for any kind of competitive exams. For CMOS, total delay is n by 2, 7 alpha t, that is equal to 3.5 alpha t. Try to remember all these points, which will be very useful for you in the GATE exams. Hence, a delay of this n alpha t equal to ln y by ln alpha times of t. The delay can be minimized if if we try to choose the value of alpha to be equal to e, which is nothing else but which is a base of logarithm, natural logarithm value base, that is e. Now it means that if you need for each stage is 2.7 wider than its precedent, means every stage the value of this one is 2.7 times bigger than the previous inverters. If this alpha equal to e, which is a base value, then n equal to ln of y. Why? Because both becomes y, because we have seen the formula n equal to ln y by ln e. Ln e, if it is equal to e, then formula of n becomes ln y. Now let us see if n equal to even, what happens? Then the transition delay, the delay time will become equal to 2.5 times of NET for NMOS. For CMOS, it will be delay time equal to 3.5 times NET. For odd number of value of n here, that number of transistors or number of inverters which are cascaded. N is the number of inverters which is cascaded. If n is odd, if it is transition from 0 to 1, then the time delay will be 2.5 times. This is a formula n minus 1 into e times of t for NMOS. If it is transition from 1 to 0, the time delay will be 2.5 times n minus 1 4 et. This is the difference between 1 and 0 to 1 is 1 here. For 1 to 0, it will be 4 here in the equation. And for the CMOS, for 0 to 1, 3.59 times of n minus 1 into t et. And for 1 to 0 transition, from high to low transition, it will be 5 times. 3.5 times n minus 1, 5 into et. So this is how you are supposed to calculate this n value and e value or alpha value while designing this cascading of the transistors in order to have a good driving circuits.